Welcome to the first morning after the 2015 years. This is the draft recap show. So we'll get into looking at how the teams look after the draft, my Super Bowl prediction that we do each year. You can guess who one of the teams is in the Super Bowl. It's the same every year. And then just kind of going over a little administrative stuff too. First of all, if you haven't done so already, please mail a check for $75 to me. My address is on the league tab of the ESPN site. Also remember, no signings until after week 1. Sorry, Tim. Hopefully your guy gets signed. And then also this year with the morning afters, probably won't be able to do them as often because I write for not a fantasy website, the Runner Sports. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. I can put my link on there. I'm a beat writer for the Bucks, so it kind of takes a little bit of time too. So I will try to squeeze these in. If anyone does want to do one of these after a week, that would be great. That would be wonderful. Just let me know. Otherwise, I'll do one after week 1 for sure, and then I'll kind of keep guys up to date as to when I'm going to do them. I'll do them getting close to the playoffs and stuff like that as well, but might not be as often this year. First of all, we'll start off with the North Division. Griff's Gargoyles, quarterbacks, Roethlisberger and Bradford. Pretty good running backs as well with Lamar Miller and Eddie Lacy, Chris Ivory. Titans running backs, minus Terrence West now since he got traded there. And T.Y. Hilton, the Chiefs receivers, Martellus Bennett, Dwayne Allen. Strengths, in my opinion, running back and quarterback. Pretty solid running backs. You'll be at least 3 deep there. Which I think most teams will end up starting receivers at flex this year. Questions, I think a second running receiver. Macklin, I think right now is a set as a third receiver. Questionable how many touchdowns he's going to get. Kelsey's a little nicked up. So I think ideally, in a perfect world, he'd have a little better second receiver. The price is right. Drew Brees, Ryan Tannehill, pretty darn solid quarterbacks. Running backs are loaded, so that's the reason no one else has any running backs is Peterson, McCoy, Carlos Hyde, Arian Foster, McFadden for the first week until he pulls his hamstring. But receivers are not good. Charles Johnson, who has some upside to be pretty good. Colston, maybe he'll get a little more balls this year with Graham out. Devontae Parker's got some upside, but the Dolphins typically don't throw it on the field. And Marcus Wheaton, gets a lot of, he should get some more balls in the week 1 through 4, but he's pretty much a slot guy. Definitely quarterback depth and running backs are awesome. Receivers 1 and 2 are not real good though. Moving on to the other teams in that division, little big men, arguably the best quarterback in the league with Luck. Running backs, Joseph Randall, see who Dallas gives the ball to, could be good, could be a disappointment. Sproles is what he is. And Abdullah, who has a lot of upside, looked really good after week 1 of the preseason, then kind of disappeared, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Receivers, Brandon Cooks, tons of upside. Jimmy Graham, has upside there in Seattle, but probably not as much as he did with New Orleans, of course. Golden Tate, underrated. And Martavis Bennett got a lot of upside when he comes back. That he's such a good deep threat. Strengths is the upside at receiver. It's got tons of upside. Could be one of the best receiving units in the league by the end of the year. But questions definitely at running back, which will be a theme throughout the show. And finally, Bernie's Bruisers. Quarterback, Matt Ryan, very solid. Running backs, Marshawn, Mark Ingram, Ryan Matthews, pretty darn good there. One of the better running back units in the league. And wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Andre Johnson, the former Texans last year, John Brown, and Ruben Randall. John Brown has some upside. He really could see him really blossom this year in that unit. DeAndre Hopkins will be questionable who's throwing to him. Andre Johnson, now he's got a really good quarterback throwing to him, so that could be a decent unit. But still, looking at wide receiver 1 is a question. I think DeAndre Hopkins will be much better suited as a 2. At this point, maybe Brown would be better as a flex. So everybody bumped down 1. But perfect world, this doesn't exist. Looking at that division, that's a tough one. Really good teams. Had to pick one right now. Griff, you're going to love this. I would actually pick you to win the division. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Usually my predictions are a death knell for teams, so sorry about that. Next up in the Central Division, we have Team Kent. Quarterback Romo, Running back Le'Veon Bell, who will miss 2 games to start the year. So in the meantime, he's going to have Ellington, T.J. Yeldon, and Trey Mason running the ball. Questionable there. Le'Veon will definitely strengthen that, and he'll have to hope Ellington comes around and has a year like 2 years ago instead of last year. Receivers, Randall Cobb could be huge this year. Brandon Marshall, I think, has a lot of potential. Not that Fitzpatrick is good, but he's a solid quarterback and can get him the ball. Greg Olsen, Tyler Eifert, the 2 white tight ends, have a decent amount of upside. Definitely the number 1 target in Carolina, and Eifert could steal some carries or catches there in Cincinnati. Alshon Jeffrey is the question mark, though. There's a lot of questions about his health. He hasn't practiced in a month, and they're very hush-hush about his injury, which having Peyton Manning a couple years ago when he was with the Colts, they were hush-hush about that injury each week. He's not going to play this week, he's not going to play this week, and eventually he was shut down for the year. Probably not going to be the case, but you never know. Strengths, though, there's no real holes. That's a pretty solid team. Ellington is a number 2. You might be able to make a case is not the strongest, but with the way the league is now, that's definitely not bad. That's probably a middle of the road number 2 now. Maybe low end, but still pretty good. Definitely questions like I mentioned, Jeffrey's health and a team name. Kent, you need to get a team name. Team Kent is unacceptable. Work on that. Take a day off. I'm sure the other people at work will be fine. Just take a day off and work on that. The Black Dingoes, one of his strongest teams, I think, in recent memory. Rodgers and Cam Newton's a very solid quarterback duo. Jamal Charles, Alfred Morris, Todd Gurley, tons of upside once he gets healthy. Gio Bernard, still there, and he still can have games where he's going to probably be pretty effective. And Ronnie Hillman's looked really good this offseason, in preseason, I should say. So a really good running back core, second only prior to the Price is Right. That's a really good unit. Receivers, Keenan Allen, Mike Wallace, Jason Witten, Antonio Gates. Maybe not the best. Keenan Allen's got some upside, so we'll have to see how that plays out. Wide receiver 1 is definitely one of the questions. You bump everyone down there, it's looking pretty good. And Todd Gurley, his health, when is he going to get healthy? If he gets healthy around mid-season, that could be really a big boon there. Because you never know in Alfred Morris how long he's going to last. He's getting not really old, but he's gotten a lot of pounding over the years. So that would be a huge win for the Black Dingoes. Next up, the Bone Storm, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, solid quarterbacks. Not elite, but definitely solid. C.J. Anderson, Justin Forsett, Jonathan Stewart, Devontae Freeman, all have some upside at running back. C.J. Anderson, I think a lot of people are expecting big things from this year with Gary Kubiak there. Receivers, Megatron, can he stay healthy? If he does, he's awesome. Julian Edelman, usually a little better in PPR, but he'll definitely be the number 2 target in New England. Allen Robinson, the number 1 target in Jacksonville, and Owen Daniels, who could be a sneaky play in Denver since Peyton likes to throw tight ends. Strengths, in my opinion, is running back, pretty deep, especially considering our league. Question, though, was Forsett a fluke? I mean, he was really good last year, and everyone was expecting him to eventually peter out, but he kept it up all year. But 30-year-old running backs who have their best year there, it's going to be another year. Was it a product of Gary Kubiak's system? We'll find out. And wide receiver 2, Edelman will be in our league is probably more suited for number 3, but we'll have to see if he can get more touchdowns. If he can be about 7 or 8 touchdowns, he'll definitely be a solid number 2. And then the Bites' Badgers, who had auto draft, and actually I think overall you'd have to be pretty happy with the auto draft, except the big question is quarterback. They didn't select Palmer till later. Jeremy Hill, Rashad Jennings, CJ Spiller, pretty good. Could probably use a little more of an upgrade at 2, just because they said they're kind of going to phase in Vereen and Andre Williams a little more. But Spiller has some upside as a flex/running back 2. AJ Green, Jordan Matthews, Amari Cooper, Jarvis Landry, Brian Quick. That's some pretty good receivers. Some pretty, what you're going to get there. Pretty solid. Matthews has a lot of upside, and Amari Cooper does as well. Divisional pick there. That's a tough one. I'm going to cop out a little. I'm going to call for a tie between Team Kent and the Dingoes. Again, sorry. That's usually not a good sign when I pick your team. Finally, the South Division, and I'll wrap this up here. The Garbage Men, pretty solid team. They're a little bit more of a veteran team. Peyton Manning, DeMarco Murray, LeGarrette Blount will be solid once he comes back. You would think, so they don't have really any competition, but you never know with Belichick. Crowell from the Browns and D'Angelo Williams, who, 1 week there, you lose Blunt, but you'll have D'Angelo for that week. Beckham, Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, and Roddy White, all pretty solid. Strengths, Murray and Beckham should be really good. Murray in that offense should get a ton of points. Questions, Mike Evans and Peyton Manning's health. Peyton Manning right now is perfectly healthy, but at the end of last year he was god-awful, so it'll be questionable there. And Mike Evans, a little concerned more, not so much about the injury, but a little bit more about chemistry. He really hasn't played with Winston at all this year, and they have not completed a pass together. I think limited practice time too, so it might be a little bit, but he's a hard worker, so I think that'll probably be pretty good. And the Horn Dogs, Matt Stafford, who hopefully has a better fantasy year than last year. Frank Gore, a lot of upside now that he won't be facing 8-man boxes. Tevin Coleman, will he get the carries? Alfred Blue, going to get the carries for the first 4 or 5 games probably, so he should be okay there. Probably going to need an upgrade at running back 2 at some point unless Tevin Coleman steps up. And the receivers, very good. Antonio Brown, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Sammy Watkins, as good a receiving core as any in the league. But the question is there at that running back position. The Kongs, I think one of his higher upsided teams he's ever drafted in possibly his final year in the CFFL, most likely final year. Russell Wilson at quarterback, Matt Forte, Melvin Gordon, Joey Bell at running back, and then Dez Bryant, Vincent Jackson, who right now looks like the number 1 in Tampa at this moment, not physically as gifted anywhere near as Evans, but right now he has a better chemistry. Eric Decker as the third is pretty good. Aguilar's got tons of upside in Philly just because they're going to run 90 plays a game, and all the Colts backup receivers in Moncrief and Dorsett. Like I said, the strengths are his upside, and the wide receivers are pretty darn good. Question is Melvin Gordon, the whole Wisconsin running back thing, and he has not looked good in the preseason. Finally, Team Cardinals, Brady at quarterback. We'll have to see. Hopefully he's out for blood, and the Patriots are out for blood this year now that he's Gronk healthy. The last 12 games last year, once Gronk was healthy, he was, I think he was like the number 2 quarterback over those final 12 games last year. So fingers crossed that, that's the case again this year. Running backs, not a strength. Latavius Murray, who has some upside, but it's the Raiders. Doug Martin, who's looking really good and he's coming into a contract year, and then struggling to find other guys. Niall Davis, who if Jamal Charles gets hurt will be super, but that's, banking on injury. And Andre Williams, who might be the goal line back / the Matt Asiata of this year. That wouldn't be terrible if necessary. Receivers, Julio Jones, Gronkowski, Devontae Adams, who has a decent amount of upside to possibly steal most of Jordy's targets, Steve Smith, who's the only option really in Baltimore, and Larry Fitzgerald. So strengths of my team, obviously, is receivers. Questions are definitely running back 1, because I really don't have one at this point. Finally, looking at the best units of each group, best quarterbacks are the Gargoyles with Big Ben and Bradford. Bradford's upside, until he gets hurt, is tremendous. Best running backs, the Price is Right, hands down. Best receivers, I'm going to call a tie between myself and the Horn Dogs. You really couldn't go wrong with either of them. There's a lot of teams that have some pretty solid units out there. Those are just picking some of them, and we'll see at the end of the year who ends up being the best units. And now for my typical prediction here for Super Bowl 22. My prediction is, and apologizing here to the other team, I think the last couple years the other team I pick usually ends up in the bottom 3. So we'll see here how it goes. Pick the Cardinals and Gargoyles for this one. I'm actually picking, yes, I know it, a Gargoyle playoff victory, as crazy as that sounds. And actually, you know what? I'm going to pick a DK Kong playoff victory as well this year. I'll get a little crazy. I think they'll both win playoff games, and I think I will be seeing Griff in the Super Bowl. To everyone else, prove me wrong. Rub it in my face and when you do make the Super Bowl. But sorry, I'm going to have to beat you. So you can do that at least. But good luck to everyone. Hope you had fun at the draft. Remember, no signings until week 1. Please send me a check, avoiding the Bailey rule if it's not received by the Tuesday after the Monday night game. So whatever day that would be, like the 8th. Let me see. 15th. If it's not received by the 15th, there'll be a 6-point penalty, and then each week another 6 points. So hopefully I don't have to mention it. One of the rules we have named after a former league member, the Dave Pujic rule as well, but we hopefully won't have to deal with that. So no shady trades, anybody. But thanks again. Wish everyone the best of luck this year, and see you after week 1 for morning after week 1.